Howdy, folks. So we've got the Thieaudio Legacy 3 in Mystique, sent by Mr. Spade from the Linsole chat, a fantastic fellow. So these headphones are obviously acrylic. They can be made in a full custom. They are vented. You can see a little vent up there on the top of the 2-pin connector, or right up by it. Extruded 2-pin, so that's like a QDC type. They have tuning switches, which apparently don't do a whole lot of much. In terms of the fit and finish, oh, these are nice. I checked out the Fearless S8Z, which was in like blue Smurf color, and these are nicer. Right off. I think I see a little red guy in there. What is that? That's a red damper. So they got two sound bores, as you can see the red damper there, probably for the balanced armatures, and then the other one is for bass, maybe, probably. So these have a 10 millimeter dynamic driver. I'm not 100% sure if it's the same as the Thieaudio Legacy 9. I think it might be, based on the way the bass sounds. So I wanted to give you a little macro shot of these. Two balanced armatures. I believe one is a 22995 and the other is a smaller one, which I can't remember the name of at the moment. But very nice headphones. Ooh, that's a nice logo right there. I like that. Cool. All right, so let's see. Is there anything else? Oh, light, very light. These do bottom out in my ears really well. The tip there, the bores are not that big. I just wanted to show you these things. Let me get them out of the package. These are ASLA, what are they called? Senda Ear Fit Light. And these were recommended by some friends of mine. And as you can see, they have gigantic bores, gigantic nozzles. So there's no constriction. So if we stick these on these like so, yeah, baby. You can tell that there's nothing in the way of those soundbars. That's pretty much ideal. So I wanted to mention these ASLA Senda Ear Fit lights. These are in super small SS size, so that they can go way in my ears. And when I do that, I get an amazing isolation. It's near etymotic. Very cool. All right, so these tips are highly recommended. They're about $10 for a pack of 2. You can get them from Amazon as far as I can tell. All right, so let's talk about their frequencies and other things. So we'll turn on my little Excel spreadsheet. So where we are here is right at the second to the bottom line right here. And so you might notice I just listened to these again right after the Legacy 9, adjusted some scores, actually on both a little bit. Just one on the Legacy 9, which was the... I left them the same. Never mind. I did adjust the Legacy 3. So coherency, starting with that. Nice 7. So that's, if there's any gaps in the crossovers or drivers that you don't hear frequencies that you think should be there. Quite good. If I had to complain, I might complain about the mids, but not a whole lot. I do hear them as being quite good. I don't know if, like a dynamic driver, one driver tends to be a bit more coherent than many. But, it's like, I don't really necessarily hear any gaps in the sound, but it's also not as good as the best coherent sets I've heard. But I don't hear any, problems, which is why I'm giving it a 7, which is, great. I think it could be better, but I don't hear any, problems that I can really stick my finger on. So 7. Color accuracy of sound. It is a little colored. It's fairly accurate. It's quite good. Trying to think of what I could compare to. So like the EJ07, compared to it, it's actually quite close in the overall tuning, but just not as vivid and exceptional. So we'll give it a 7, which is quite good. Is any magic factor? I hear them as being maybe slightly less magical. I don't know what that means, but I don't like them quite as much as the L9. I think mostly having to do with over here at the stage depth and the openness of sound, which are well inferior to the L9. Quite good, but still. So we'll give it a 7 for magic factor, which in my scale is, oh my god, that's great, which means likely you're going to have a good experience. And I wanted to mention the price. So these Mystiques are like extra compared to the, what is it, Clockwork, like clear. I'm not sure I got the $200 right, but I think it's right around there for that. But anyways, for $200, the magic factor is actually really good on these. In other words, for $200, I think they're a pretty damn good deal compared to some of the other higher end sets that cost more. I don't find those other sets as being quite as good as this. So a 7. Stage depth, 6. I just checked this quite closely on a couple tracks. One that I brought up in another video is, what is that, Little Tempo in the Rain. And that track is definitely, like if you compare AB, like the Legacy 9 to the Legacy 3 or the EJ07, or even say like the Fearless S8Z, it is more closed in. There is no question about that. So, and also the stage depth doesn't go quite as deep as any of those. I don't know if that's a tuning thing or a driver thing or what. I'd just be guessing, but that's what I hear. So we're going to give it a 6, better than average and not wonderful. Openness of sound, same deal with that. It's fairly open, but not, okay, maybe not fairly open. It's like medium, we'll call it. Probably a little wider than the sides of your head, but not much more than that. Imaging, also I checked that pretty close just now in a couple tracks, and it's not wonderful, honestly. It's, let's say there's a noise that pans left to right. Take your pick. It's got a little bit of a fuzzy nature to that. You can hear it happen, but it's not vivid, detailed, and easy to pick out. So we'll call that a 6. Volume scaling. So this is a new metric in my chart here. What that directly is influenced by is the treble push, the high-end OCD treble push. And this set, so let me just go over here and pop that up. Get rid of that. So here's the Legacy 9 versus Legacy 3. 9 is in the red. So what we're looking at here, let's see if I could, yeah. Hang on. Yeah, so the volume scaling is going to be, at least for my ears, is in this area right here, and then a bit after it. And so as volume comes up, I am more sensitive to this area, the high, like whatever that 7 to 8K range. I get really sensitive in that. So when a headphone dips that like the L3 right there, which a lot of headphones do in that area, that makes that much easier to deal with as volume goes up. So I like that a lot compared to the L9, the Legacy 9. And then we got the 8K peak, which is actually quite common, and I like it. So we're going to call that good. They're just about the same. And then the L3 drops off a bit lower than the L9. But I think what I hear, the volume scaling in this area right here, this needs to come down, not up. When this goes up, as volume goes up, that becomes piercing to me. So wanted to say that. Where are we here? Okay, so going back, so volume scaling is going to be an 8. It's actually really good volume scaling. You can turn these suckers up to the point where they blast your eardrums out, and it doesn't hurt. It just sounds really loud and good. And I think also these do sound better the louder you turn them up, which is similar to the EJ07. So yeah, these will probably be a set you'll be listening to loud, which is my favorite. Do we have any pressure buildup? We do not. They are vented. The drivers do not crinkle as you shove them in. That's excellent. Give it a nice 2. Moving on, isolation. And I mentioned this earlier. The fit of these is excellent. You get them way in there. They bottom out for me. They're very isolating. We give it a 4 out of 5. Really good. Bass texture. I call these basically, I think they're using the same dynamic driver as the L9. I don't hear much difference there. They sound very similar. The L9 may have a tiny bit more sub bass, but pretty similar and not different enough for it to matter. So they're both going to get a 7 from me, which is really good bass. Mids Mids. So I'm going to give them a 7. I do hear the mids as being a little bit better than the L9, mostly because of that area in the upper mids, which isn't pushed. However, they still have a little bit of a dip compared to what I like, and so although the high mids are not as pushed as the L9, they still have a little bit less mid-mids than I actually enjoy, and so I'm rating the mids about a 7, which is roughly the same. So that's good. I'd like better. Detail. So I am very treble sensitive, and I do think that, in other words, having more treble is not better. Having good treble is better. So I'm rating this just kind of like on an overall, not so much do I like it better or not, just is the treble good and is there enough of it? And so I'm going to give it an 8. It's slightly under the L9. However, the treble's a bit different on them, and I think that somebody that likes a top-of-the-line tuning may like the L9 more than the L3. However, I do hear the L3 is having really nice treble. It's not EST driver type treble, so the not quite as I don't know. It's hard to put a word on that, but it's easier to listen to. The electrostatic drivers are really easy to listen to, no matter how much treble energy, whereas balanced armatures don't seem to be that way for myself. And then moving on to resolution, I don't hear them as being tremendously different than the L9. There's OCD detail, it's definitely lower than the L9, but they're still balanced armatures, and I still think that they resolve roughly about the same, give or take the amount of energy you're putting into them. And then because of the fact that they don't have pushed high treble, binaural stuff sounds better actually on them than, I don't know, the L9. So I give that a 4 out of 5, which is quite good. You can listen to binaural stuff on these and it will sound great. Nice. Any special features? Well, there are. They have tuning switches. And so let me just pop that up here. You'll kind of see what I mean. So we'll go to the L3, and then we'll get rid of, well, I'll just leave that there. Let's see. Well, we'll do this. Oh, I got to click the right window. Hang on. All right. So we got some tuning switches, and then how do I do this? Well, I'll just poke at them here. So we'll start with the setting, which is my favorite. And I don't know how Crin does this. I think 02 is what I use, which is the first switch off and the second switch on, or, you know, I think that's that. Anyway, I'll just bounce through them. So that, and you can kind of see the graph does not change. Well, a little, but not much. It's kind of, it's very minor. Let's see, going back. Yeah. Especially those two. Anyway, I just wanted to show how the switches affect, which is not too much. I like them in off, first switch off and second switch on. That seems to just hit my ears right. Minor differences. Okay, going back. So let's see. 4 sound signatures. I'm going to give them a couple extra points because that is definitely an advantage, especially for a lot of other people. You know, just subtle differences can actually make a big difference to some folks. So that's it. That is good. So overall, for, you know, we'll say between 160 and 200, depending on your option, this headphone is actually really, really excellent. Yeah, from the graph, I'm rating it basically the same as the L9, which is to say it's kind of like my overall impression, which is I like it about as much, give or take. I could probably listen to it longer because of the treble, but it has slightly less of a wow factor, magic, than the L9. So I do recommend it, actually, and especially since you can do a custom version of that. In terms of custom IEMs, the price on this thing is like bargain basement low. It's really, really good. So that's a good, I don't know, introduction to custom headphones for a lot of folks. get this out of the way. And here's our stars of the show. Just to go over a couple things I talked about in the last video, just real quick, like little tempo in the rain. The vocals are front and center on this. The wideness of that track is not as wide as the L9. And then Reggae Disco Rockers, Bridge Over Troubled Water. That's another one I check out. And that one is very nice. There's no major problems with it. It's just slightly less wide than I'd like. So a couple tracks. Leo Brower Studios, which I talked about for the L9, definitely sounds less exciting and vivid on these unless you turn up loud, in which case it sounds, I think, possibly a little better, a little more bold in the mids than the L9, because at the point you turn the L9 up to that, it starts to pierce your ears, so you might need to run that a little lower in volume. Let's see, metal tracks. I really like really heavy metal. There's a band called Napalm Death. You guys may have heard of them. Let's see, what's the track? God, what is it? It just totally escaped my mind. Well, anyway, Napalm Death is an extremely brutal heavy metal band, detuned, very aggressive. And these guys do excellently on that type of music. They don't have push treble. You can turn them up. Guitars sound bold, vivid, brutal, excellent. I play guitar, and that's like one of my pet peeves. I just wanted to mention that. The L9 does not do guitars as well as these because of the push treble. You can't turn them up as much, and guitars get lost in the mix easier than these do. So for certain genres, these are going to be better, and for certain, they're going to be worse than the L9. I personally like a headphone that does all genres really well. That's what I'm looking for. I don't have to mess with changing headphones or tips or anything. I just want to shove them in my ears and listen to what I want to listen to. These are recommended, actually. They're excellent. A friend of mine said, well, are these like a mini EJ07? And I would say kind of. They have a lot of the same frequency tuning as the EJ07, but it's like a less good version of it. Like the 3D stage is not nearly like the EJ07. The wideness, not even close. Sub bass, not as good. Mids, definitely not as good, not even close. Treble, yeah, roughly about similar. But again, the EST drivers on the EJ just knock that out of the park like you wouldn't believe. These do get a good rec, and I do like the Mystique. That is some hot IEM action going on right there. Thank you, Spade. I really appreciate the opportunity to check out your headphones, and you're a good guy. All right, folks, have a great day, and I'll see you on the next one.